Thanks. Thanks, Katie. Just a lot of a lot of familiar names on the list of people. So thanks everybody for coming. And the way I'm going to go about this, like the next generation firewall, I was thinking like I was going to do it in a way where like, hey, how did I go through that journey when I was a customer, and what was it that actually helped me get to there? So let's just get started. I'm going to share my screen real quick. And hopefully you guys can see the screen on the presentation. So why do we need a next generation firewall, or what's the journey to get there, or what actually can some of the benefits you can get out of that? So let's start by introducing myself. My name is Raphael Carrillo. I have been with Palo Alto for 2 years. Before that, as was mentioned, I was a customer. I used to work for a state of California agency that actually went through the process of changing from a legacy type of firewall into a next generation firewall. And I was part of the team responsible to, deploy them and replace the legacy equipment that we had, and how we got to not only validate with management that we were making a better decision, as well as how we can actually implement it and better position it so that our staff could better support it and understand it and see some of the benefits on that. And just pretty much how I'm going to go pretty much on how we proposed to it, as well as some of the key features that we actually showed up to upper management so they can actually see the benefits on this. So first off, your typical legacy layout, you had an ASA or firewall of your choice, and you were offloading URL traffic inspection, you were offloading SSL decryption, as well as most of the time you're actually doing anything VPN for users or remote sites on a whole different box as well. So in order for traffic to get through the firewall, you would actually have to offload a bunch of things that would actually need to get done externally, and then come back to the firewall to get out. And then the next hop you would have would be your legacy IDS IPS, which that's where you would see like, hey, here's good traffic, here's bad traffic, here's how we actually allow and deny and blacklist and whitelist IPs, etc. And then after all, it went out to the internet. You actually created VPN tunnels to remote sites, and that would actually have to traverse all the way in and through all your firewalls and IDS IPS, and then go off to where they needed to land for the connectivity. Typical legacy, a whole bunch of points for you to go through, different types of items to look at to see if you're doing any troubleshooting. Where is my issue happening? Is it after the offloading for URL, SSL, remote VPN, or IDS, as well as the firewall itself? So a lot of things to look at, to see if you do any troubleshooting. So what did we do? We started seeing, that offload to all of those devices. We start seeing like, hey, we're taxing this a little too much. We're actually sending everything off to, other things. How can we make it so that it's easier for people to look at a single pane and actually be able to see, hey, here is what's going on this traffic, and here's where it's hitting from, and the destination, and have it all in the same place. It's being blocked by the policies, it being blocked because it started as a thread, etc. So your legacy type of setup when it comes to any firewalling that you're doing is, hey, it doesn't matter what applications you're using. It could be good, it could be bad, it could be just anything embedded within port 80 or 443. Legacy type of connectivity, which just created the source, the destination, and the port was pretty much the main objectives of doing like a policy. So we open traffic to the internet on port 80 or 443. So we just punched the holes for those ports and let them out. We didn't care if it was AWS, if it was a Dropbox, if it was going to like a dating site or like a gun site or anything like that. You just allowed the traffic on the legacy firewalls, and just because everything was embedded in either port 80 or 443. And of course, because of that, our legacy architecture was firewalls all over the place that had to traverse between one another. Anything that needed to connect would have to actually, have connectivity where like you would connect to a remote access VPN device. There's there's a lot of unsecure areas that cause gaps within your security and cause it for you to actually have to, keep following the packet until you could find exactly what was causing the issue or where the gaps were. So there's no consolidation of the management. There's no consolidation of how they actually would connect. This would make the whole deployment very complex. A lot of security gaps, as you can see, when there's like the user connectivity with the using SD-WAN, et cetera, and other devices that actually would be in between that are not security based. And then of course, poor user experience because you're doing multiple hops, you're doing multiple connections, you're doing a lot of extra things that should, that are causing the experience to be harder on the customer. So here's what we did, and we proposed to our management when it came to like the redesigning our data center and creating the connectivity. Single pane of visibility. We deployed 4 firewalls at the time, where we could actually separate our environment as well as the multi-tenancy that we were hosting, and they were all managed by Panorama. And the reason that we did that is you can actually embed other features in it, like Global Protect, which is the VPN solution, IPsec tunneling can be terminated on the firewall, credential theft, all the threat prevention, threat protection, and URL filtering, App ID, SSL decryption, among many other things like user ID, so you can actually identify the people by who they are and not just by IP. So you start consolidating all that into a single box, which actually can give you the visibility of like, hey, here is what's happening with all this traffic and all this connectivity. And we were able to consolidate the tools. We were able to give it a single pane of visibility by using Panorama. And then we were also able to start saving on some of the cost and the extra things that we were buying with that. This consolidation helped us so we can actually have better support team. We actually train all of our staff so they can actually just look at a single tool instead of looking at 4 or 5 different tools. When which you start stacking the team to start doing different points of viewing on things. Like for example, when I was before the consolidation into the Palo Alto, we had a guy that just handled IDS. We had a guy that just handled the offloading of SSL. We had another person that just handled any WebSense / URL filtering related items, etc. So with that consolidation, we were able to actually train everybody so they see a single pane, and now your team is more capable of anyone being able to look at what's going on instead of having to go from one person to the other to get the full visibility on what's going on with your network. So the advantage of that, single security platform, which Palo Alto gives you, it gives you the security stack between your branch data centers, any connection from partners, any of your users connecting, Internet of Things, some of your SaaS applications in the cloud, the internet, access to your public clouds, which are like Azure, AWS, etc., and as well as headquarters, and it all gets secure, and only the users that need to have the access to the destinations that they need to have access on the specific applications have access to that. So there's more granularity. Instead of doing, hey, we're going to open port 80. No, you open the applications that you want to use and let that handle, the ports that it actually normally communicates on. The same thing with 443. It's vital that you enable SSL decryption on your firewall, so you can make sure that you can actually see what's inside the 443, so you can actually start applying all the security profiles. So the other thing we did with that is the network security platform provided us a consolidation of the IDS IPS features. We can actually take care of the geolocation blocking. We could actually take care of whitelist, blacklist, leverage external dynamic lists, so we can actually populate our policies to block all of the traffic that needed to be blocked. So we were able to apply all those, and we started seeing that our security was all in a single page with visibility, all in a single management device, and we can actually follow the packet easier as we can actually see the transactions happening from source to destination, even if it traversed to multiple firewalls. So with that being said, we actually leverage the Panorama device to manage all of that, so we can actually keep the storage of our logs and visibility into all of our devices. The consolidation of that actually also gave us the opportunity to start creating shared policies, which meant that we can actually have policies that precede any other policies on the firewalls to provide a security that everybody gets, and those are only managed by the admins on Panorama or the firewall, so they can actually be secure, so someone else that comes in does not have access to modifying that, and you can provide the top level security as well. So with that being said, we got more consistency because we got to see the traffic, that as it's flowing through the firewalls from one destination, from one source to a destination. It's all integrated. No need to hop onto different devices to look at different things. And of course, as most of you know, best in class, best in breed. And as we acquire other technologies, we implement them, and we get them to work just pretty much the same way as you're used with the firewalls. Like the IoT licensing, you have plugins where you can actually connect to other tools. Like, let's say you have networking with NSX. We have a plugin that connects with that. You need the plugin to connect to your cloud devices. We have a plugin that actually interconnects with that. So you can actually have the visibility that you need to have in a single platform for management. So what sets us apart from everybody is that we have a single pass parallel processing architecture. What does that mean? That means that instead of uploading things for other devices to see them, or offloading things for certain resources not to be wasted on the firewall, our firewall actually does all of that in a single pass. There is a list of how it actually goes. It starts with some of the pre-settings, and then it goes on the current, and then it goes on the post settings to look at things. It will handle as well as, hey, I'll look at a policy. If the policy meets the criteria, I'm going to push it down to the next level. Does this need to be decrypted? And it looks at the decryption. If it needs to be decrypted, it gets done, but it's all within a single pass, no offloading. So some of the latency that you normally have from offloading is taken out because it's handled within the same box as a parallel process. So it doesn't have to, like, hey, I'm waiting on this resource. It goes through a list, and as it goes through a list, it goes to the actual checks on what needs to be done, instead of like, hey, I'm gotten to the decryption part of it, I'm going to offload it, and then I'll wait until it comes back. No, it goes through the same process, and once that's updated, it goes and looks at the other features until it goes through the entire box. So that's one of the big benefits on that. So how has the firewall evolved within the years? So if the first firewalls came out with, like, in 2007, all they had was app ID as well as a little bit of the security features. In 2009, Palo Alto came out with the Panorama network security management. So you can actually stack and see most of the firewalls with you if you wanted to put them all together. In 2013, the VM series, which is the virtual machine firewalls, came out. A lot of people started deploying those, especially within their data center, in their VMware environment. And you can actually, even to manage some of the NSX features, you can actually start deploying that and got them to see the visibility on the layer 7 level, as well as the east-west traffic inside of the NSX devices. And 2014, that was like a big event for us, because the wildfire analysis, which is the sandboxing, which does the exploit and detection of malware that's not been seen before, came into place. And that one changed the world for us, because it does the updating of anything that it finds to be a bad signature or a bad type of traffic, exploits it up on the cloud, and then sends an update to anybody that has a wildfire license, as well as it starts packaging it up so that it threats updates, it actually comes down eventually. And then 2018, we started doing our cloud delivery firewall services, which is our Prisma Cloud solution. So we can actually start doing the shift left mentality. You see shadow IT, as well as some of the other features in the cloud, so you can actually better monitor your resources out there. On 2019, we had the acquisition of an SD-WAN company, which was called CloudGenix. Now it's called Prisma SD-WAN, pretty much, which is a layer 7 type of SD-WAN connectivity. Our legacy SD-WAN connectivity was pretty much layer 4. You just open the port and then you connect it to like a router, so it can decide, hey, does this meet like the ACL or the traffic that's being allowed on this? And then it went off of that. This layer 7 firewall, and what it does is, like, it looks like at app IDs instead of just the ports, and it decides which way it needs to be, it needs to take in order for it to get the better traffic, or you can actually preset where that traffic goes, so that you have multiple links connecting to your SD-WAN, so you can actually either load balance or start seeing if there's any deficiency on any of those bandwidths and start sending it through the other side. And then on 2020, the containerized firewall, pretty much a Kubernetes type of firewall setup where you can actually manage the entire stack and the containers up in the cloud on some of your devices. And then 2020, with the 10.0 code and 10.1 and 10.2 code, we started doing some of the new next generation machine learning features where it actually creates patterns and profiles for you. So you can actually see, hey, this one user normally goes to their SharePoint connection. It normally goes out to the cloud to authenticate in Azure, and it accesses Office 365, and it starts creating patterns of behavior after seeing how the users actually are normally, doing things on a daily basis. Like once in a while, be like, okay, so once in a while, this person goes to ESPN, and it goes to like a news site every once in a while. So it creates those patterns of behavior where it sees certain things, so that when it sees something that's like way out of pattern, or that it could be blocked something else somewhere else within the box, seeing that, hey, why is this guy going to a site in Russia, especially right now? So it starts creating that, and actually creates, you can set it so it creates a warning, or it creates an instant block on things that should be way out of the pattern of behavior. And if you guys would like to know more, reach out to your SCs on that, because that's a game changer right there for you and your security. Make sure that you're upgraded to the 10.1 code at least, so you can actually see a lot of the benefits. The 10.0 code is going end of life in the middle of July, so you want to make sure that you're on the 10.1 code. The sooner the better. So here's the other thing that we showed up management, like, hey, how does a policy, or as we would know it before, an ACL look like? So if you notice, we're looking at a decryption policy, which has a source, a destination, what applications get affected, as well as what type of services are applied to it. No need to actually specify a port, whether it's allowed, whether it's denied, and then you apply the security policy, so you can actually the profiles for security. So it actually has to go through like, hey, does it need to get sandboxed? Are we doing threat prevention, any URL filtering, any other DNS, or any of the others, DLP, anything else that actually gets affected by that, where you allow it, and then you actually create your other type of settings where like you actually allow who can connect, and that's where user IDs come in. Of course, the application, which is very vital, so you can actually identify anyone that needs to have access to that, to the resource, on what ports, to the actual destination. So you're securing who exactly, it doesn't matter what IP they have. If the user ID is picking them up as who they are, they will have the access no matter what subnet they're on. So one of the other features that the 10.0 code and higher allows us to do is do a device ID, which comes with the IoT subscription. In this, it actually starts looking at the network, and then it can actually see what exactly those devices are that are connecting to the network. Just think of it as the same as a user ID. It's another checkbox within the zone that you have it connected. And what it does is that it allows you to start grabbing information and create the profiles on devices. If it doesn't identify it, it flags it as an unknown, and it just keeps looking for more information until it can flag it. But it gives you a nice dashboard for you to see, like, hey, I picked up some Aruba APs, I picked up some Raspberry Pis, I'm picking up all these other devices. And what's nice about that is that it also gives you a suggestion of what type of policies you need to apply to those guys, so you can actually have a secure connection for those devices. Like Aruba APs, they just need to connect to their controller. That's all the traffic we need to allow for those guys, etc. We need users to connect to those guys. That's the only allowed traffic that we're going to provide for them, etc. So it gives you suggestions on policies for you to apply and import into your regular policy view. You can actually do the policy optimizer as well. Most of the people move from like a legacy firewall into a next generation firewall with I'm just gonna grab what I have and then I'll fix it as we go. So the advantage with that is, like, let's say you move a rule that has, or a policy that has a port 443 enable or port 80 enable, saying, hey, I'm going out to the internet on these two ports. The policy optimizer, if you have SSL decryption, if you have everything, you can actually look at the 443. It starts seeing at the apps that it's actually trying to use for that. So what it does is that it gives you visibility into saying, like, hey, in my policy optimizer for rule 20, which says, hey, allow 443 and 80 out to the internet. Hey, I'm actually seeing that all these 443 traffic, I'm seeing an ID for you to go to Facebook and Netflix and etc. Some of the other apps. And what you can do is it lets you grab those apps that it's flagging and create a policy that you can put above that rule saying like, hey, only accounting and only finance or marketing have access to go to Facebook, and only marketing has a the opportunity to go to Facebook chat, etc. You can be as granular as possible, so you can actually only allow the necessary traffic to flow through from the people that need to access that traffic. So it gives you that granularity where you can actually make your network secure, where you're only allowing who needs to have access to where it needs to have the access to on the applications that it needs to have the access on. So that's one of the neatest features that we have right now. It gets you over the hump of like, hey, how do we get from the ports over to policies? And then eventually with time, as you start creating more policies above the rule that actually has those things, you'll start seeing 0 hits on that policy, and you can eventually disable it and then delete it. The other thing is within the same policy view thing, you can actually jump down to the NAT, QoS, any policy-based forwarding and decryption, many options on what you can actually tweak when it comes to that single pane of visibility. No need to be switching around. If you have a different context, it's just a drop-down menu to actually access it. No need to be jumping around like on the legacy device where you jump from one context to the other to make modifications. And as mentioned before, you have the share connection, which actually allows you to be able to create master rules so they can be managed and set up by admins, so they have a certain type of protection beforehand before any of the firewalls actually start doing any of the policy review. So we start looking NAT policies. You look at it, it looks the same as the security policies, pretty much. A name, any tags if you want to filter, so you can actually have a design that actually shows, and you can group them into certain tags, so you can actually separate them from one another. A source zone, a destination, who's actually doing, what's the source address, anything like that, and then as the destination, which you can do dynamic groups, and you can do like EDLs or anything that you want to have for IPs and anything, and then you can have the destination where you can actually do either a static IP or you can do a path, so you can actually have that visibility into all of the all of the interface that you're using, as well as how many ports you can actually assign per connection if you do that path side of things. So all the visibility on that. And here's a nice thing about this. So if you notice, you have like some grayed out ones, and then you have like just like a white one. This is actually the visibility from a firewall. When managed by Panorama, we have what's called the pre-rules and the post-rules. The pre-rules get assigned to the firewalls before any of the local rules get put in, and then you have the post rules will actually execute after the local policies from the firewall go through. So you can see the pre-rule right above, the local rule in the middle, and then the post rules that actually looks for right after that. So layer granularity, you can actually single visibility, no need to create multiple lines to see like, hey, where's my global, where's my which ones am I using, what IPs am I using. You can actually even use the same IP multiple times if need be, if you want to do separate connections, but you want to put them on separate policies, as well as just single pane of visibility. All you need to do if you want to create another NAT on another one of your context, which we call VSIS over here, you just jump over to their VSIS, and you're not moving around where you have to have a whole bunch of CLI connections going at the same time. As well as the same as SSL decryption. A policy name, and then you give it the source, give it a destination. Are we decrypting it or are we not decrypting it? And what type of decryption profile are we using? And are we logging it? Are we sending it to Panorama? Same visibility, same as the policies as well as the NATs. So that's what we wanted to show, that it's pretty much the same type of visibility, so you can actually not feel like, okay, how do we create a policy for decryption? Is that the same as creating a policy for a NAT, or the same as creating a regular security policy? It all looks pretty much the same. It's just knowing and understanding how to implement the security features, right? Security features will go mostly on the security policies. The NAS will create the translations, and the decryption will do that, just decrypt the traffic that's flowing through the zones on the firewall. The same can be done as well as like tunnel inspection, QoS, policy-based forwarding is just pretty much the same as, hey, I'm seeing this traffic come in from this source. Instead of going through like the regular quad zero follow, you can send it this way. Same features that we used to see. It's just in a single place where visibility, you can just move from one line to another to see what's going on. So once we made all those presentations to upper management and they understood that the benefits of consolidation, the benefits of actually understanding the product as well, and growing with it and seeing how we could actually deploy it and get it going as soon as possible, management was able to approve that, and we were able to get that installed and up and running. And then I was with the agency that I was at for about 7 years, and the whole time we had Palo Alto, we didn't have any we had the security we needed. We kept growing with the product. We kept studying with it and actually kept up with like some of the enhancements with the help of our SCs and account teams. So always reached out to TAC to see if like they could help me out with things. And actually, they were pretty good about helping me out at the time. I know there's some struggles with all of the attacks going on right now because of all these vulnerabilities going on. But yeah, it was a good experience, and because of that, I got more engaged with Palo Alto, and now we started the Sacramento chapter, which actually became the biggest in the U.S. And we leveraged that to actually start doing PCNSE classes, so we could actually teach people how to better support their product. And I see on the list there's a bunch of you guys that actually have been along the way with me. So thanks for joining as well. And that's all I had for this, guys. And I guess we can look at some of the questions you guys had in regards to this. Let's see. I don't see any questions. Does anybody have any questions that they want to put on the Q&A or the chat so that I can ask? If not, I hope it was a straightforward presentation, just talking about like how the journey came to be and what we actually position and present it to upper management to make it more feasible for them to understand that the investment that we're going to make was a good one. Okay, so I see a question saying, how was your experience with Global Protect? So the big advantage with Global Protect is that it comes with the box with the basic licensing, so you can create the same setup that you had. The biggest advantage you have with the Global Protect when you install it within your firewalls is that you can actually apply all the the so-called IDS IPS features, which is all the security profiles, and now treat this guys as an inside network connection, but with the visibility of having the security all within one single box. If you actually expand it and get the Global Protect licensing within your firewall, you can start doing other things where you can actually leverage what's called the HIPS profile settings. So you can actually start gathering information from your machines that connect, as well as create patterns of like, hey, if someone does not have a Windows 10 machine with this type of patch, I'm not going to allow it on my network. If someone has a Mac iOS that has certain features that I don't like, do not allow them to a network, and then you can create quarantine or internet access only connections, so you can actually push them to those, and they will only have the connectivity that you specify if they do not meet your criteria to connect. Okay, the next one. We always recommend separating out remote access VPN onto different firewalls cluster to keep any bugs and upgrade requirements separate. Did you run it all in one on the same cluster? Yes, I did. So the way we did it is depending on the, because I manage what's called a multi-tenant environment. So they were giving the opportunity of doing it at the local machine level, but if need be, we had what's called a VPN only firewall to handle IPsec, as well as if any of the tenants didn't want to do it on the main firewall, they could do connectivity. It was mix and match. Every time we upgrade the firewall, we make sure they also upgrade the clients as well as the user ID. We had a path of like, hey, how do we get so that when we upgrade, we actually take care of the customers as well. And then the next one is there anything that Panorama cannot do would there be any reasons why next generation will need local policies, objects, etc., that cannot be done by Panorama? So that's a great question. So for that one, Panorama is just think of it as the storage of the configurations. Anything that's policy related, anything that the objects, anything else needs to be stored on the firewall. Panorama only holds those configs in case, let's say, you need to make a modification, you need to share objects within other firewalls. It can be done at the same time. So you can actually, Panorama is not so much doing the firewalling, it's just managing the configs as well as keeping the logs for all the traffic going on. Okay, how did you go about sizing the firewall from legacy to next generation firewall? Great question. The way you start seeing is you start doing the sizing as in like, hey, how much traffic are you going through? What exact features are you looking for? As well as you have to understand that once you enable certain features, you're going to take the hit. So you have to sit down and do like a whiteboarding with the customer and understand like, hey, here's where you're at. If we look at our Palo Alto comparison chart, this is the firewall that could actually match what you're doing right now, but it's not about matching what they have at the time. It's about understanding where are you at, what do you want to do, and how do you want to be set up so you can scale and grow with the environment. So there's a lot of things that go into consideration on that, and it varies from customer to customer as they actually have different needs. It's not like, hey, I'm just going to sell you the biggest box. That might not be the best fit. I just work with the customer that actually switched from Cisco to Palo Alto, and they, we went over their case, and they were like, yeah, you know what, we would like to have a bigger firewall, but we got to understand our budget can only get us to this far, and we got them to a point where actually works for them, and there's some scalability with the understanding that in the future they will need to do something else if they want to keep growing. All right. Next one is SSL decryption, very difficult to implement. I'm at the screen for it, but is it really just setting the default profile and going from there? What's cool about that SSL, setting up SSL decryption is mostly uploading the root CA as well as your forwarding profiles. And we have documentation that walks you right through it. I did it just grabbing the documentation and got it all set up so we can actually have that set up within the firewall. There's other features that, depending on how big your department is or how big your company is, you might need to get the server people involved so you can start pushing the same profile security certificate to the devices at the endpoint. You normally start with the sample. Normally it's going to be your group in IT, and work some of the bugs out until you can actually feel like, okay, this is ready to go live, and understanding that. You got to understand though that you have to see how much your data plane is being used, because once the SSL decryption is enabled, it's going to take a little bit of a toll. So if you're using like a legacy firewall that you're like at 50-60%, not legacy firewall, some of the older next generation firewalls, you got to understand like enabling SSL decryption is going to put a big toll, and some of the newer boxes have been set up to actually handle it better, just because of the newer setup for like the 4K certificates, etc., TLS 1.3, etc. So documentation wise, I was able to walk through it and get it done, but it also depends on how much access you have. Do you have access to deploying the certificate through SCCM, etc.? There's certain features where you need to include other teams to get that involved. All right, next question is, did you migrate your existing firewall configuration from legacy or NGFW, or did you start from scratch? What would you recommend? So what I tell customers, especially if they're going from a legacy to a next generation firewall, is we have what's called a quick start package. And it's just a little bit more than what you spent. And what they do is like, you have someone come in, they have a tool called the expedition tool, which actually can grab one of the configs. Oh, now that you bring that up, that's my next slide. Hang on, actually, never mind. If you can see on the slide deck, not only do you have what's not only is there like, hey, we sold it to you guys, catch you later. We actually, if you do the quick start packages, you can actually have them, and they will use what's called the expedition tool to copy them, the configuration, massage it, and then put it on the firewall. And then there's like minor tweaking that needs to be done after that. Some of the other stuff, if you're like just starting from scratch, we have what's called the Iron Skillet, which configs it with the best practices. And then once you get up and running, we have other free tools that you can actually leverage to better utilize the product and better secure it, like a best practice assessment. What that does is that it goes over your setup and lets you know, like, hey, here's where you stand if you were to get an audit going right now. And it walks you through, like, hey, here's the things you need to fix. Normally what I do with that with the customers, I'll go over with them the best practice assessment. We will start going and trying to hit the low-hanging fruits, the easy ones to fix, and then set up if they are in our environment that needs to be doing changes after hours, we'll set up a meeting so we can actually do that after hours. You just keep going and just keep plugging away, and just take care of one thing at a time, and then run another best practice assessment and see where you're at, and see, you want to show that you're improving on your security posture. And of course, the policy optimizer, which we talked about earlier, is one that actually you can move from like the legacy port base to the application base. So if you move, like you were asking, like, hey, how do you do from scratch? You can actually move with the expedition tool, and there'll be certain things that did not migrate or that you actually kick off after the fact. And the policy optimizer can help you get from it being a port base to a policy, to an application base type of policy. Next question is like, do you recommend 10.1 or 10.2 when I'm grading from 9.1? I would recommend you to get to 10.1 right now. You have to do the hop to 10.0, but you want to get to 10.1. 10.2 is out there and it has some codes on it, but until you start seeing like the fourth, fifth, maybe sixth iteration, so you'll see like a 10.2.6, 10.2.5ish, and when you start seeing the solid code. So I always tell my customers, like, hey, if you really need to go to the latest code, make sure that it's something that's like not as new, like a 12.1 or a 12.2, just because you want to have code that's been vetted for a little bit. Some of the new boxes come with a 12.0 code, so you're kind of stuck. You might as well go to the highest right off the bat, especially since you can do it right off the bat when you get them and you don't have them deployed. You can upgrade the code at any time. But yeah, get to the 9.1. Get to the 10.1.6 code. The sooner the better, so you can actually avoid the 10.0 thing that's happening on the 15th. It's not saying that because on July 15th is going to end of life, you're still going to get dynamic updates. It's just that if you call support, the first thing they're going to tell you is like, hey, you need to upgrade to 10.1. So you want to get there the sooner the better, so you actually do not have to deal with any of those issues. Next question, in your opinion, what is the best implementation for MFA or two-factor authentication for Global Protect, and it's available out of the box, or does it need a license? So MFA is available out of the box, and then the only thing is that it's limited to like about 5 options, I think, for that. And then you can actually do other type of connectivities by using either the forwarding or etc. But yeah, it can be done for the MFA side of things. Documentation and that QSC that can help you get the proper documentation on how to get that deployed. It's pretty straightforward, especially if you have like a Nocta or a Duo. There's specific documentation from both sides that actually have that interconnect, so we can actually have that implemented. Can we use a PAVM for east-west traffic in the data center? That is correct. Yes. So the way that we do that is like you can actually implement it as a VM within your vCenter. And what you can do is, especially if you have like if you have like a lot of VMs, which most of the people have a bunch of VMs on their environment, what you do after that is that you actually offload all the layer 7 inspection from your vCenter, and it actually goes to the firewall, so you can actually be able to see and allow the traffic needed for the application. So think of it as a regular firewall, but for servers in between. Now you can better secure your microsegmentation. So the only, if you have a web app DV type of layer, the web can only get to the app can only get to the DV, and vice versa. So only the traffic that needs to go to where it needs to get to gets to it. It also allows to authenticate people. It allows you to see who has been doing some of those transactions east-west. And the same type of setup applies for like Azure and AWS. You deploy so you can actually see your east-west traffic from all of your servers that you're securing up in the cloud. Next question, do you see more VM-based Panorama servers or hardware-based? Why would you want a hardware-based Panorama? That's an excellent question. So it all depends on the customer, their budget, as well as their needs. So I have customers are like, hey, you know what? I'm going to buy just the VM-based panorama, and I'm going to buy data lake logs, which is like our cloud, cloud logging system. The advantage of that is like you send everything to the data lake in the cloud, and then if you have any of our other tools, like for example the our Cortex endpoint and security solution or Prisma solutions, you can send all those logs to the data lake that can actually be managed, and just you actually get to see multiple points of where the traffic could have been affected or not, and you can create playbooks on the Cortex XOR to actually leverage all of that information. So it all depends on where you're at in regards to the in regards to your path to deploying your management or your visibility. I also have customers that have an M500 managing panorama, and then they have M600s, which is the higher end boxes just for logging, and they just log everything locally. They need to have like so many months per requirement of logs. So some of them will have them where they have logs for like 6 months to a year, and we'll do that. And they need to have that locally so they can actually because of like either HIPAA requirements or SOX requirements, et cetera, they actually have that available for them to use. I've had people that actually have a VM managing panorama, and they let the VM do the panorama managing, and they use the local boxes to just do the storage for logging purposes. So there's a big mix and match on how you can actually deploy your panorama environment. It all comes down to what is it that you need to have in regards to like, do I need to have multiple logs? How much space do I need to, do I want to have for logs? You can actually do about 2 to 4 terabytes on your VMs. Do I have enough space on my VMs for me to do that, et cetera? Will this handle much? How much will this handle? And also, how many firewalls do I have? How many firewalls are logging to this? And that's when you start deciding like, okay, do I need to go hardware? Do I need to go cloud? Do I need to stay local? Do I need to do VM? So it's a whole bunch of factors for you to decide which one of the panorama type of setups you want to actually use. All right, how do we access Iron Skillet? It's actually a tool that's free in your support site. You can actually just go ahead and download it, or you can actually work with your SC to help you, because it's all in your support site. So you can actually, it's pretty easy. You just go, you support that Palo Alto account, get in, and you know how you have your devices, your tickets and everything, and you're in that tab where like on the left-hand side, you'll see that it's one of the tools in there for you to actually start using for the what's it called, best practice config. All right, so they're also asking what's the difference between the BPA versus the BPA plus. Pretty much the big difference on that, and I'll just keep it simple, big overlay on that, is like the BPA gives you the info on what you need to go tweak, as well as give you options like, hey, here's what you would need to do. BPA plus actually gives you the link to go to exactly where you need to go fix it. That's in a nutshell, the big difference on that. So I tell my customers, let's keep using the BPA, because unless you really feel the need to pay for the BPA plus, let's just keep doing the BPA. All right, thanks for all the questions, guys. That was a lot of good questions. Is there anything else? If not, I will hand it back. Well, thank you so much, guys.